Live on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 125, and on myjoyonline.com and all our social media platforms. This is Joy News Prime. I am Emefa Apau. In our lead stories in this bulletin, Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice to invite Professor Frimpong Boateng to assist with investigations into allegations that politically connected individuals stifled the Galamsey fight. We'll get to hear from CHRAJ as it insists the failure of South Dai MP to furnish it with evidence will not affect its probe, but there are practical challenges. Ghana loses more than $10 billion to violence as the latest Global Peace Index indicates that due to external and internal conflicts, the world has become a more dangerous place. And we know that the country has slipped 2 places on the index. We'll give you details shortly of that. Also, multiple legal and administrative processes set in motion to have a new judge handle the trial of Minority Leader Kaisa Latofosing, as the current judge is accused of bias. Details for you as the Chief Justice begins a probe into the matter. And dams constructed under the One Village, One Dam project in Bongo cannot hold enough water to be of use to residents during times of dire need. Many thanks for sticking with us. Now, Ghana has lost over $10 billion to violence. That's according to the Global Peace Index Report 2023, with the global economic impact of violence currently at $17.5 trillion, nearly 13% of the world's GDP. Ghana, for the year under review, lost 3% of its GDP to violence alone. The report notes that due to external and internal conflicts, the world has become less peaceful in the last 15 years alone. My colleague Mami Sinyamiche Thompson looks at the ranking in the following report.
The 17th edition of the Global Peace Index covers 163 countries, comprising 99.7% of the world's population. The study was based on 23 qualitative and quantitative indicators from highly respected sources and measures the state of peace across 3 main domains: the level of societal safety and security, the extent of ongoing domestic and international conflict, and the degree of militarization. The report found that global peace had deteriorated by 0.42%. 84 countries had improved peace, and peace in 79 countries had declined. Iceland remains the most peaceful country in the world, followed by Denmark, Ireland, New Zealand, and Austria. Afghanistan is the least peaceful in the world for the 8th consecutive year, followed by Yemen, Syria, South Sudan, and the Republic of Congo. In sub-Saharan Africa, Mauritius is ranked the most peaceful country, followed by Botswana, Sierra Leone, and Ghana in 4th place. Below the ladder is Cote d'Ivoire at 16th, Togo 19th, Nigeria comes in 37th and followed closely by Burkina Faso at 39th position. Sub-Saharan Africa recorded a slight fall in peacefulness, with the average country score deteriorating by 0.57%. Of the 44 countries in the region, 21 improved in score, while 22 deteriorated and 1 remained unchanged. The region is less peaceful than the global average on the safety and security and ongoing conflict domains, but more peaceful than the global average on the militarization domain. Meanwhile, the report states that Russia's invasion of Ukraine and its consequences were the main drivers of the deterioration in peacefulness globally. Both Russia and Ukraine are now ranked amongst the 10 least peaceful countries, and Ukraine had the largest deterioration of any country in the 2023 Global Peace Index.
Let's get a breakdown of the figures as worked on by the Joy Research Desk. And this is how it looks like. So $10 billion we are losing to violence. That's what we know so far. And we'll take a look at it over the last 3 years from 2021 all the way till now. So this is Ghana's 2023 rank. World, it's 51st. So that's where we are. In Africa, we are 4th. And then that's according to the Global Peace report for for 2023. That's what it looks like. So let's look at the description for the world as against Africa as well for the year 2022 and 2023. For the world, Ghana is at 40, and that was for 2022. 2023, we are now at 51st. We've dropped. And then for Africa, we were second. And now take a look. We are fourth. That's our ranking as we speak. That's the global peace rank. And the cost of violence in Ghana, like we've been breaking down for you, 2022, it was 10.1 billion US dollars. Now for 2021, it was 10.5 billion. Now that's the difference. The difference now we're seeing is 400 million US dollars. That's what it looks like so far. This is how it looks like when we talk about the cost of violence, especially for Ghana. So this is quite the difference now as we've been breaking down for you. And we know that the global impact, which amounted to $17.5 trillion in 2022, equivalent to 12.9% of global GDP, or we can say is $2,200 per person. And this cost is largely being blamed on the Russia-Ukraine war. And Ukraine as a country lost 449 billion US dollars, the largest in any country. And let's bring in Mutara Mumuni Mukhtar, is the Executive Director, West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism, joins us via Zoom. Thank you so much for your time here on Joy News Prime. So looking at the figures, quite staggering. 10 billion. We're at IMF now looking for just about 3 billion. How are we hoping to save costs knowing that we are losing $10 billion just to violence?
Well, it tells us many sides of our societies in terms of the economy, in terms of, security, and generally our society's well-being. If you look at, the data, it tells you that in the last couple of years, the incidences of violence around militarized violence, in terms of police violence, in terms of the unresolved chieftaincy and land disputes, and as well as ethnic conflicts around the country, it tells us that this is not surprising. And for me, if you look at the cost involved, generally the data we look at, beyond what has been published here, what we are looking at, the average cost in terms of, in monetary terms, the most peaceful countries are losing about 3 to 4% of their GDP. If you look at the 10 most affected conflict areas globally, we are looking at between 29% to even close to 60% of their GDP. That's more than half of the entire GDP of the country. That is a very, very terrible situation for any country. And what we are experiencing here is actually the tail end of it. We are actually some of the least impacted countries when it comes to the cost of conflicts to nations. But at the same time, it's significant. If you look at the situation that we are looking at, we are addressing the economic challenges that we are facing compared to the existing conflicts that have been unresolved over several decades. It tells us that we need to take it more serious in terms of our efforts to resolve unresolved conflicts, especially in the northern parts of the country. We are being told that the numbers have increased in terms of chieftaincy and ethnic conflicts that have been unresolved for decades, in this space. And that should worry all of us in terms of what it means for our economy and for our society.
Well, this particular index, for instance, at least we've seen it in 2021, 2022, and 2023, and it looks like we keep dipping. Are these index something that we take seriously as a country, you'd say?
It is generally, this is by the Institute of Economics and Peace. It is generally a combination of qualitative and quantitative data that they use in this ranking, and is taken from very reliable sources. And so globally, everyone who works in this space take this ranking very, very seriously. And if you understand the implications it has for nations, it makes sense for us to take it serious and to work around how we can get, we can be projected positively in the rankings. Today, anyone who is looking to invest in this country would also be influenced by this ranking, would be influenced by what is happening around us within the region and within the country. Anyone who is very, practically involved in security knows that our country has gone bad in terms of the security vulnerabilities and the potential that we could be facing much more dangerous situations. And so it has very huge implications for us, and we need to take it very seriously. And of course, I know, in the last couple of weeks, we've been, experiencing very serious situations of insecurity in the northern parts of the country. We try to communicate in a manner that does not provoke alarm and panic. But the reality is we are not in a good place when it comes to security in this country now.
Okay, and it's not just the situation on the ground, it's costing us economically as well. We are grateful, but this is an issue that we'll get to interrogate further. Mukhtar, we are always grateful for your time here on the Joy News channel. So that's the situation with the Global Peace Index report and how much the violence in this country and some of the conflicts are costing us as a nation. Well, board chairman of the Ghana Peace Council, Reverend Dr. Ernest Edujemfi, reacting to this report, indicated that continuous education on the effects of peace must be done. He also indicates that the council is taking consultations with several stakeholders to mitigate the challenges of conflict. We turn our attention to some of the stories now. And the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice says it will invite the former Environment Minister, Professor Frimpong Boateng, to assist with its investigations into allegations that politically connected individuals stifled the Galamsey fight. Well, this indication comes in the wake of Member of Parliament for Saudai, Roxanne Nelson Dapamakbo, informing the Commission he does not have any evidence to provide. The legislator petitioned CHRAJ to investigate the matter following widespread publication of the report, would focus on how key government and politically connected individuals stifle the fight against illegal mining.
Dr. Frimpong Boateng himself is the best person to make available these details. We have responded to the letter, and Prof has indicated his willingness to appear before the commission and answer to questions. So I believe that once he's invited to speak to the matter, he will have documents to adduce to support the claims that he made in the report that he issued to the office of the president, which is the subject of the petition. Then the indication I get is that they are waiting for these documents before they make progress. That indeed, that is the tenor of the last paragraph of the letter. So I have responded appropriately by saying that they can proceed with the matter, and Frimpong Boateng says the documents and the other materials that they want from me, and so he will provide them.
But CHRAJ says it is going ahead to probe the matter despite admitting their practical difficulties.
We gave the list of the areas of interest in terms of evidence that we think, if they have it, they should make it available to the commission. It took a while. I think that letter has been with them for well over 3-4 weeks. Until now, we have, that is if I remember, a response from them. But of course, I want to assure Ghanaians that the Commission is investigating this complaint irrespective of whether the complainant is able to assist or not. But it is a duty of every complainant, if you actually have a case before the Commission, to be seen to be interested in supporting the Commission with any evidence that could be available to you. So that is the angle from which the letter written to them was given. And so I must say that we're doing a lot. We've reached out to a number of state institutions, expecting them to forward to us evidence of what we also expect from the complainant as well. There's nothing wrong with having the opportunity to look at all possible evidence and all nuances of the evidence in order to make the findings that we think we have to make. So we have done a lot for now.
I mean, in terms of their response to you, they specifically make the point that Professor Frimpong Boateng has what you need, and he's already publicly indicated that he authored those documents. Am I to understand that the individuals that you intend to invite, or those you have already invited, does it include Professor Frimpong Boateng?
As I told you, we don't do that. We don't normally want to do this in the media. But of course, if the good old Prof has got information for us on aspects of the complaint, we will reach out to him. But you see, there is an aspect of the complaint we need complainants to appreciate. In addition to the report by Frimpong Boateng, the complainants have made specific allegations against Professor Frimpong Boateng himself on allegations of corruption and the missing excavators and others. You don't expect that. That means that in the context of the allegations against Frimpong Boateng, in the eyes of the commission, becomes a respondent. And so we can't be asking Frimpong Boateng to come and give evidence against himself. We must get that evidence external of Frimpong Boateng. So the areas that we may need Frimpong Boateng will be areas that have no allegations against him, but for which he has the evidence to support.
I mean, so it means that at this stage, there's the possibility that you call upon him at some point in time.
Definitely. Especially in regard to the areas, one, that he can support the commission with evidence about his own report and possibly reach out to him as a respondent in respect of the allegations made specifically against him in the area of corruption and the excavators.
I mean, in terms of that allegation, how would you be investigating it? I mean, clearly they did not give you any evidence with regards to that specific one.
That is why we wrote to them, to appreciate the need to give further and better particulars, because Frimpong Boateng cannot give evidence against himself.
I mean, are you able to give us a sense of how many people you are looking at, or how many institutions, for instance, you've also written to? Because it's the petition that was sent to you broadly says that all the named officials in it, as against a petition that ordinarily would have targeted specific names written on the documents.
At this stage, I would not want to go into the details of the investigation. Suffice it that we have written to a number of state institutions to provide evidence. Those people who will be respondents, we are also going to reach out to them. Don't forget, we need the evidence first to ascertain that there is a basis for us to contact the other people who will become respondents. In the absence of any evidence beyond what they have given to us, we need further information or evidence to be able to say the named persons in Frimpong Boateng's report, there is enough basis for us to require a response from them. That is why we're still at this angle of the investigation.
I mean, in terms of your procedure, I know that mostly what you tend to do is when you receive a petition, you do a determination to see that whether this is a matter that falls within your ambit. Am I to understand that you've already crossed that hurdle already?
We've crossed that.
That's the Commissioner of CHRAJ, Joseph Whittle, there interacting with our legal affairs correspondent, Joseph Akaple. Now, from the next meeting of Parliament, the Appointments Committee will be chaired by the party not in government if the revised standing orders is adopted. Currently, the committee, which vets appointments from the President, is chaired by the First Deputy Speaker, who since the inception of the Fourth Republic has always belonged to the party in government. Parliament has made a raft of changes to its existing standing orders to fit modern trends. My colleague, Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante, joins us via Zoom to give us a breakdown of what's currently happening when it comes to those particular sweeping orders or changes that's been made in Parliament. Kweku, first, take us through some of the key changes that has been made to the standing orders as we speak.
So, MFR, the most probably sweeping of these new changes is the expansion of minority parties' powers in Parliament. Hitherto, there were few committees in Parliament that were actually chaired by parties other than the party in government. In particular, the Subsidiary Legislation Committee and the Public Accounts Committee are the most popular of these two committees, which are chaired by members of Parliament who are not members of the party in government. But this is now being reviewed. In particular, Parliament is now going to allow the opposition party in Parliament to chair a crucial committee like the Public Accounts Committee. Like you said, it has always been chaired by the First Deputy Speaker, and from now on, it will be chaired from the minority party if this is eventually, adopted by resolution as we have seen today on the floor. We are also going to see what is called a budget committee, which is going to be sort of a breakaway from the larger committee of finance, which is going to give that kind of powers to Parliament to vet, check on budgets that will come from the executive, and also ensure that the budget that is passed by Parliament is implemented in a way that was approved in the House. So let's listen to Bernard Ahiapo. He's the ranking member on the Parliament Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee, as well as Habibi Idrisu, giving a certain outline of what these standing orders is going on in terms of its implementation.
The review standing orders is also establishing the Committee on Ethics and Standards. It's also establishing a Committee on Development and the Economy, establishing a committee, the review standing order is establishing budget, a committee also. It's also establishing a committee on ways and means. It's establishing a committee on independent constitutional body.
Mr. Speaker, for instance, the appointment committee. It is a beautiful idea that the committee is now chaired by a member from a party that is not forming government, as captured. But I was also of the view that with regards to ministers who have been vetted and approved by the committee, if they are reshuffled one way or the other, we do refer them back to the committee.
One interesting one, Kweku, is the Ways and Means Committee that has been proposed. We'll talk about that, and then also the other standing committee. But what's the explanation that was given for the Ways and Means, though?
Well, so according to Parliament, there is the need for a Ways and Means Committee as pertains in the jurisdictions like the US and the UK. In the US, the Ways and Means Committee is actually in charge of writing tax laws for their Senate and their House of Representatives. What is going to be the Ways and Means Committee in Parliament is going to be in charge in terms of the oversight of the various committees in Parliament. So what pertains now is that if committees wanted to do anything, they will usually have to route it through the clerk to Parliament for budgetary approval, among other things. Parliament wants to stop that practice and give that power to members of Parliament themselves. So the Ways and Means Committee is going to be a very powerful committee in Parliament, which is going to oversee almost all the committees in the House in terms of their budgets, in terms of other things they do. They are also expected to present periodic reports in terms of how parliamentary committees are doing. And so for the first time in this country's jurisprudence, we're going to have a Ways and Means Committee in Parliament.
Okay. Well, they also want to extend invitation to institutions like CHRAJ and the Electoral Commission. As it stands now, they only do for ministers and appointees, amongst others. Has that been adopted? But let's talk a bit more about what the proposal is.
Right. So currently, only ministers, like you said, and deputy ministers sometimes are allowed to answer questions on the floor. In fact, MPs who have various concerns about how things are going on in various sectors can actually ask questions for the ministers to come and respond. There's no such provision for the Electoral Commission, for instance, or CHRAJ. As per these new standing orders, if it goes through, the Electoral Commissioner, Madam Jane Mensah, for instance, can have an urgent question standing in her name, and she will be expected to come to the floor to come and answer. Boko Central MP Mahama Yaga thinks that this is a very welcome development, and all MPs must rally behind it.
Speaker, in this day and age where constitutional bodies are playing very key roles, and there must be a mechanism for holding them accountable, we will deny ourselves an opportunity to use the tools of parliamentary processes to hold these institutions accountable if we don't grant them audience. And so the proposal that allows us to give audience to independent constitutional bodies to appear before us, given that they are not under sector ministers, and the existing rules only allow sector ministers to appear before us and answer questions. If we stick to the existing rules, we will deny ourselves the opportunity to hold independent constitutional bodies accountable by the mechanisms of parliamentary oversight that are known to us.
Well, the constitutionality or otherwise of this, Kweku, I know came up on the floor. What were the arguments for this or against it?
In fact, there seems to be a certain consensus among all of the members that this is something that they should do. But of course, the former Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayeni, said that Parliament would have to tarry slowly so that it does not seem to have been, as it were, extending its tentacles into EC affairs, CHRAJ affairs. But the Speaker of Parliament came in and said that, well, what they are going to do is to only question them about what they are doing and not seek to control them.
My substantive observation with respect to the current standing orders relates to the mandate of the Committee on Independent Constitutional Bodies. Mr. Speaker, when we were drafting the standing orders, we were careful not to act ultra vires because of the fact that the Constitution, for instance, in Article 46, says that the Electoral Commission is independent and shall not be subject to the direction or control of any person or authority. Now, Parliament is an authority under the Constitution. The question is whether we can purport to exercise complete oversight over the Electoral Commission. And in the composition of the mandate, the formulation of the mandate of the committee, we said it shall have referred to it matters from the independent constitutional bodies. So, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest that we be more careful and specific in the formulation, because as the Honourable Ayarga has said, the Honourable Member for Boku Central made clear in his contribution, if we don't take time and we overstep the boundaries of our constitutional mandate, we'll be running into trouble with these independent constitutional bodies.
And direction in the performance of their functions. Not everything. And so in the performance of their functions, we are not going to do anything that will control and direct them. But definitely, we represent the good people who pay them, who pay for all what they do. And we are given the function to ensure that what they give them is utilized in their interests, in the interest of the people. That is also our function, not their function. And so we are not going to control or direct them in the performance of their function. We are just going to perform our function of holding them to account to the good people who have been paying them and paying for whatever they do. That is all.
Well, they are also expected to have a committee on security and intelligence, even though we know that there's a defense and interior committee. There have been some arguments on this. Let's talk about it, Kweko.
Right, MFI, again, this is also molded in the shape of the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives, what is the Committee on Intelligence. This is going to be a whittling away from the existing Defense and Interior Committee, and they're going to be briefed periodically on national security issues. Over the past few days, we've been covering stories about how jihadis in the northern part of the country and how the defense ministry are going in. Parliament is usually handicapped on such matters. They do not get any briefing, except the president, for instance. With the coming in force of the Security and Intelligence Committee, there's going to be that avenue for MPs to question intelligence chiefs on some of these matters. The MP for Ayawaso Central and Greater Accra Regional Minister Rikote is concerned that some MPs may divulge national security information to the public, and so he wants them to either swear oath of secrecy or append their signature to some documents.
Mr. Speaker, clearly security and intelligence is a different ballgame altogether. May I suggest that though members of Parliament and ministers of state may have sworn different oaths of secrecy and all that, that members who will be selected to be on this committee, there should be a clause, Mr. Speaker, to, as it were, guide them from divulging confidential information that may harm the security of the nation. Mr. Speaker, I say so because oftentimes we meet at committee levels, ordinary committee levels, your committee in Parliament, and discussions that are held there are brought in the open, public discussions. So, Mr. Speaker, this particular committee has to be looked at carefully, and members who go on it must be made to sign something to assure Mr. Speaker that should they divulge any matter, any sensitive matter that comes to their attention during the course of their performing their duties, Mr. Speaker, that there will be sanctions. Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very important area that we have to look at. You cannot play politics of the national security of this country.
So, Kweku, we know this. Has this been approved, and was there consensus for this, you say?
Indeed, there was consensus on both sides of the aisle. So the committee report detailing these specific changes have now been adopted. We expect that in the coming days, Parliament will, by resolution, give effect to this. Already the Speaker of Parliament has explained that the standing order is expected to come in effect at the next meeting of Parliament, which will start either late October or early November. So in the coming days, there will be a resolution to this effect, and then finally, Parliament would have revised the standing orders. There have been efforts to do so for the last 20 years, and finally, Parliament has been able to forge some sort of consensus to be able.
Okay. That's Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante there, giving us details of happenings in Parliament, and we're expecting some new standing orders, and it's been adopted in Parliament. There's more on myjoyonline.com, but there are multiple legal and administrative processes set in motion to have a new judge handle the trial of Minority Leader Dr. Kaysel Atuforsen. The current judge, Justice Ifeasewa Sariboche, is accused of bias, and the Minority Leader and businessman Richard Jakpa are all demanding her removal from the case. The two are standing trial for their alleged roles in the purchase of ambulances, which the Attorney General says resulted in a €2 million loss to the state. Legal Affairs.
Businessman Richard Jakpa has petitioned the Chief Justice, asking that she transfers the case to a new judge. It is unclear at this stage what specifically is Mr. Jakpa's concern current judge handling the case. Justice Efia Sariboche on Thursday indicated that allegations of bias have been leveled against her. It will be recalled that Mr. Jakpa clashed with the judge on June 20, 2023. This bordered on how he had reacted when a clerk of the court had offered him a sanitizer sent to him by the judge. The judge warned she will not tolerate any disrespect from the parties in the case. The businessman Joy News understands holds the view the judge will not be fair and should be stopped from handling the case. The Minority Leader, on the other hand, has filed a motion at the court asking the judge to recuse herself. He contends some comments made by the judge raises questions regarding the impartiality. Specific reference is made to the judge's warning of issuing a warrant for the arrest of Dr. Forsen's witnesses who failed to show up in court. The Minority Leader holds the view that if a summoned witness fails to show up, the court needs to inquire into the reason for the absence rather than simply threatening to cause the arrest of the witness. He therefore wants the judge to recuse herself from the matter in the interest of a fair trial. Justice Efia Sariboche announced that due to the pending petition to the Chief Justice, the case will be put on hold awaiting the decision of the Chief Justice. The request by the Minority Leader will also remain outstanding while the court awaits further direction. The Minority Leader has meanwhile petitioned the court asking that his passport be released to enable him travel. That matter is also yet to be dealt with. The case is back in court on July 27.
And just in from our Legal Affairs desk, the High Court has set aside a CHRAJ investigation into the Frimpong Boateng contract for sale case. We'll give you more on myjoyonline.com. This is Joy News Prime. Still to come, dams constructed under the One Village, One Dam project in Bongo cannot hold enough water to be of use to residents during times of dire need. Welcome back to Joy News Prime. Now, 8 dams constructed under the One Village, One Dam project in Bongo, Kassina, Nankana West and Talensi districts, all in the Upper East region, dry up at least by January because the dams cannot hold enough water. Farmers told Joy News they leave the water for the animals to drink and are unable to farm during the dry season as the program is intended. In a first of 2-part hotline documentary titled Thirsty Dams, Features editor Jojo Kobna reports that farmers are pleading with government to coerce contractors to return to the site and do a better job. The documentary airs on 17 July. Here are excerpts.
Water to the northerner is like blood. When we have water, we can do a lot of things for ourselves.
And without it, unemployment, poverty, and famine to escape, many young people traveled down south for supposed greener pastures. The NPP government provided a solution: one village, one dam.
The then candidates and then the running mates visited a chief in one of these villages and met the women digging the ground with their bare hands for water. So when they saw that, they said, well, when we come to power, we will provide you with water that can be better than what you are using your bare hands to construct. And that is how come the promise of one village, one dam.
I'm saying every village, one dam. One village, one dam.
The policy appealed to the people in the northern regions.
The government came here and told us that they will be giving us dam. And our people assured them that if they give them dam, they also let them laugh. And really, you can ask our assemblyman and even ask the NPP people what this community did for them. They voted massively for them.
It was a political promise that won the hearts and minds of the people. The dams should make it possible for farmers to farm all year round and break the cycle of waiting for the rains before cultivation. It was the reason why the people of Bongo sang and danced till they became drenched in sweat. When the president cut salt for the implementation of the project.
We have begun the One Village, One Dam initiative, and you here in Bongo can see for yourself that we have begun the initiative. It is our intention that Bongo alone will get 10 dams this year. 570 are being built. You heard the minister across the 3 northern regions, and Bongo constituency alone is going to get 10 out of that 570.
This campaign promise has been fulfilled. Well, but not quite.
Dam always takes us 2 months to dry up. Only 2 months? Only 2 months. October, November, the water dry up. November, like this, you see our pepper farm, you will like it. But where? No water again.
My name is Jojo Kobina. It has been 5 years since the dams were constructed. My job here is simple. Find out how the dams are serving the people as it should and what concerns the people have. I hope government will use the findings in this documentary to improve the current state of the dams.
And that documentary airs on the 17th of July. You don't want to miss it. Now, Chief Executive Officer of the National Health Insurance Authority, Dr. Bernard Okoboy, has disclosed his outfit has reimbursed over 1 billion Ghana cedis to health facilities in the country. In addition, claims of service providers for February 2023 are also being processed. With these payments, Dr. Bernard Okoboy says they are now within the 90-day window, which is the acceptable international standards for payment of health insurance claims. Joining us, Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from WA.
Dr. Bernard Okoboy began his 5-day tour of the Upper West region at the Upper West Regional Coordinating Council, where he met with the Upper West Regional Minister, Dr. Hafiz bin Sali. He recalled with nostalgia his last visit to the region as a Deputy Minister for Health, when the region was confronted with fighting the global pandemic of the coronavirus alongside cerebrospinal meningitis (CSM). 44 persons had lost their lives as a result of CSM at the time, and urgent steps were needed to put a lid on it. Dr. Okoboy is now the Chief Executive Officer of the National Insurance Authority and is back in the region, and this time to visit and interact with stakeholders and officials of the NHIA.
Before we took over administration some 7 years ago, we had serious liabilities when it comes to arrears. This also affected what happened in the hospitals. People go to the hospital, they will tell you, instead of 4 medicines that you have to take, we have 1. People go to the hospitals, they will tell you, we've not been paid. Sometimes they take money from clients. Today, as we speak, the good news is that from January to now, we've paid over 1 billion Ghana cedis to clear almost all the arrears that we have with hospitals.
He also used the opportunity to announce some new additions to the benefit package of the health insurance scheme.
We've also added hydroxyurea, a very recently developed drug, very effective at reducing crisis occurrence in sickle cell patients and improving the quality of their lives. And then thirdly, we all know that Herceptin, a wonderful drug, is a wonderful drug which improves the chances of survival for breast cancer women. We have not stopped there. Recently, some few weeks ago, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's Excellency announced that mental disorders or diseases would now be put on the benefits package of the National Health Insurance Scheme. So that people with depression, schizophrenia, all kinds of mental diseases that end up with people walking on the streets, we now can treat them and pay for them so that people can be brought back to society.
Our Power Soldier Minister, Dr. Hafiz Bin Sali, on his part, appealed to Dr. Okoboy to work to ensure that all 11 municipals and districts in the region have independent officers to improve healthcare delivery in the region.
Your agency is operating in 9 out of the 11 areas we have in the Upper West region. Lambusi is still hooked to Jirapa, while the Piema Buse is also hooked to Nadoli.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam. Wow.
Now, a recent findings conducted by the World Bank has revealed that 50% of 10-year-old students in developing countries struggled with literacy. A post-COVID assessment revealed that this figure had declined to a concerning 70%. Managing Director of Operations for the World Bank, Anna Bechde, shared the outcome of this investigation on a visit to the new Bawe Municipal Basic 1 School to assess the progress of the Ghana Accountability for Learning Outcome Project, GALLOP. There's more in this report.
The Ghana Accountability for Learning Outcome Project, GALLOP, is an initiative founded by the World Bank. The project supports 10,500 schools nationally. The World Bank Managing Director of Operations, Anna Bechde, as part of her visit to Ghana, went to the Bawe Municipal Assembly Basic 1 School, one of the beneficiaries of the GALLOP project. She expressed concern about the inability of pupils and students in developing countries to comprehend what they read.
So before COVID, we were tracking data of 10-year-old children to see how many 10-year-old children in the world had a difficult time reading a story that was appropriate for their age and understanding it fully. For developing countries, low-income and low-middle-income countries around the world, 57% of those 10-year-olds actually had difficulty. That was a high number, we felt, and gave us a reason before COVID to really focus and continue to focus on education and learning, actually trying to quantify and understand whether children were learning. After COVID, we have reassessed that number, and it's not a good outcome. We now put the number at 70%. 7 out of 10 children at age of 10 have a hard time reading a story and fully comprehending it.
Deputy Minister of Education, Intim Forjo, indicated the GALLOP project has helped significantly in improving the literacy of students in the country.
Thanks to the support under GALLOP,
A number of interventions under the Gallup program was targeted at remediation programs post-COVID. So whilst COVID took a hit, learning losses were occasioned, but we had some interventions that addressed some remediation. So after that, in the year 2021, in December 2021, we did a national standardized test. The outcome of our national standardized test was that 54% of learners around the age of 10 are able to read proficiently at grade level. But 56% is not where we want to get to. We actually want to ensure that minimum, our strategic target is to ensure minimum 90% of learners at the age of 10 are able to read